Good morning, everyone. My name is Shonda Corbett. I'm with North Carolina Department of Emergency Management, and welcome to our applicant briefing for Tropical Storm Debby. This applicant briefing is for Tropical Storm Debby, declaration FEMA MA EM 3608 for North Carolina. Declaration date August the 8th through August the 5th, 2024 is the incident period. Excuse me. August the 5th through August 19th, 2024 is the incident period. Again, my name is Shonda Corbett. I'm the Western Branch Supervisor. Janine Stevenson, the Central Branch Supervisor, and Thomas Bennett is the Eastern Branch Supervisor, and will be presenting today for the Public Assistant Applicant Briefing. The agenda for today will be an overview, 3 steps to request FEMA request for public assistance, submit a request for PA in FEMA grants portal, and some of us in the community, or some of you all in the community, may already have received notification or already been registered in the grants portal for FEMA, and you may have received a notification. If not, this will be for those that are first time recipients or first-time user of the grants portal. So you will submit your request for public assistance, and once it's approved and registered in EM Grants, that's the state's portal, and also document expenses. We also will cover procurement and contract and resources. Next slide, please. So, as I said earlier, the events dates are declaration for this event is called FEMA EM 3608 for the state of North Carolina. The declaration date is August the 8th, 2024. The incident period is August the 5th of 2024 through August the 19th of 2024. The request for public assistance deadline is September the 7th of 2024. For this event, we only have one category of work that's been recognized, and that's category B, emergency protective measures. Also, there are a number of counties that are part of this declaration, and I think I counted almost 66 counties. And the need for mosquito abatement is normally increased after heavy rainfall event like Debby. We're already aware that several counties that are anticipated above normal abatement operations in the near future as a direct result of this event. If you're finding similar circumstances in your jurisdiction, we're asking the following. 1, to notify NCEM Public Assistance that you are in need of your estimated cost increase as a direct result of Tropical Storm Debby. And 2, to notify your North Carolina Department of Health and Human Service official of the increased population so that it can be coordinated with their office. So that's the outstanding of for mosquito abatement at this time. And now I would like to introduce you to Janine Stevens. She is the Central Branch Team Lead, and she's going to be speaking to you about the FEMA Public Assistance Program. Here it is, Janine.
Thank you, Shonda. Again, my name is Janine Stevenson, and I'm the Central Branch Supervisor. Today, we will review the Public Assistance Program and the application process related to Tropical Storm Debby. Next slide. The Public Assistance Program provides grants to eligible state, territories, tribes, local governments, and eligible private nonprofits to assist with the reimbursement of response and recovery from events. The Public Assistance Program is governed by the laws of Stafford Act. 44 CFR addresses program regulations. 2 CFR addresses procurement. And the PA Program and Policy Guide, also known as the Papa G. There are 3 easy steps to start the FEMA reimbursement process. We will go through these steps in the upcoming slides. Keep in mind that as applicants, you are applying for a grant from FEMA to reimburse eligible expenses. Under the emergency declaration for Tropical Storm Debby, we are focusing on Category B, emergency protective measures. The first step is to register in FEMA's grants portal platform. As Shonda mentioned, if you have received reimbursement previously or registered for public assistance, you may already have access to grants portal, but we will still go through the process for the rest of you. Grants portal is the primary access point between FEMA, you as the applicant, and the state. The applicant has the ability to define and assign roles for all personnel that will participate in the reimbursement process. Submit your request for public assistance, upload documentation to support your requests, and much more. All additional documentation requests from FEMA will come through Grants Portal. All applicants seeking reimbursement for costs related to emergency protective measures taken during Tropical Storm Debby should submit a request for public assistance through the Grants Portal. If you're not sure whether your organization qualifies, submit an RPA anyway. This is a sample list, in no way all-inclusive, of public entities and private nonprofits that may be eligible for FEMA reimbursement. You may notice that departments such as police and fire are not listed. Individual departments will submit for reimbursement through their unit of government. For example, the Office of the Sheriff is included under the county's reimbursement request. Keep in mind the reimbursement process from FEMA cannot start until the request for public assistance is both submitted and approved. The RPA is submitted through Grants Portal. The deadline to submit an RPA is 30 days after the declaration date or 30 days after the incident period closes. For Tropical Storm Debby, the RPAs must be submitted no later than September 18th, 2024. That is a correction to what we talked about earlier. If your organization is already registered in Grants Portal, please confirm your login and contact information, as well as for personnel that will be assisting with the reimbursement process. If you are not familiar with your public assistance grants manager, please email us at pahotline@ncdps.gov. This email address will be your one-stop shop for assistance with Grants Portal, EM grants, and any other questions regarding this process. Also, make sure that your documentation is up to date in Grants Portal. If you are not registered in Grants Portal, visit the website grantee.fema.gov and select Register Your Organization for Public Assistance. Make sure you have the registration documents needed before beginning the RPA process. Applicants will need their organization name and type, EIN, and UEI numbers. If you do not have a UEI number, please visit sam.gov. We'll also need it to register in the state's portal once your RPA is approved. Private nonprofits must submit the information listed during the registration process in Grants Portal. Required documentation includes tax-exempt certifications, proof of ownership or legal responsibility, proof of insurance, and corporate documents. If you are a private educational organization, you will also need to submit accreditation information. Please note, this documentation is not required for public entities that were mentioned earlier. The second step in the FEMA reimbursement process is to register an EM grant. Without registering in EM grants, the state is unable to release any funding. EM Grants is the state portal, a conduit between the state and the applicant. It will be the platform where reimbursement documentation is submitted and the closeout process will be completed. It is important to complete the funding agreement, the state applicant agreement, the designation of applicant's agent and assurances, also known as the DAA, as well as submit an updated W-9. Without this documentation, applicants may jeopardize their funding. If you have already registered in EM grants, please make sure that your contact information and supporting personnel information is up to date. You will also need to complete a funding agreement, which we will go over in the next slide. If you have not registered in EM grants previously, visit emgrants.nc.gov and go to register. Make sure you have a valid email address, phone number, applicant organization if listed, to register for EM grants. Under the program, select Public Assistance or PA. If you have any issues or concerns, please email us at pahotline@ncdps.gov. The first step is to complete a funding agreement. The funding agreement workflow is under Accounts on the left side of your screen or in the top bar on the menu. I won't go over each step of the funding agreement process. However, if you need additional help, feel free to review the tutorials on the webpage. Contact us at pahotline@ncdps.gov or reach out to your PA grants manager directly. The information in the funding agreement generates the DAA and SAA as mentioned earlier. Once that documentation is completed, you can download copies of each of these documents for your records. It is also very important to retain your records for 3 to 5 years after the disaster is closed by the state. A few additional things of note are audit requirements. The Single Audit Act and 2 CFR Part 200.501 require an annual audit of non-federal entities, including tribes, that expend $750,000 or more of federal financial assistance in a fiscal year. North Carolina state law also requires units of government and public authorities have their accounts audited each fiscal year and to submit a copy of the audit report to the Secretary of the Local Government Commission. This means your auditor must conduct a single audit during the fiscal year, and that audit can be requested by the state as part of your reimbursement process. If you have questions about your requirements, please contact your local auditor. So to recap, the first step in the FEMA reimbursement process is to submit a request for public assistance in the grants portal. The second step is to complete the funding agreement and upload an updated W-9 in the state's portal, EM Grants. Again, if you have questions, please contact us at pahotline@ncdps.gov or reach out to your PA grants manager. I will now turn it over to Thomas Bennett, Eastern Branch Supervisor, to review step 3 in the process, how to document your expenses.
Thank you, Janine. As Janine mentioned, we're going to go through how to document your expenses as well as touch on some foundational eligibility requirements for this disaster. Our emergency declaration for Tropical Storm Debby is allowing specific Category B expenses, currently limited to costs associated with evacuation efforts, shelter support and operation, and EOC costs. FEMA will determine eligibility using the pyramid to the right. To be an eligible cost, you first must be an eligible applicant, such as a state and local government or critical private nonprofit. Next, you must have legal responsibility for the costs being incurred, be within one of the declared counties shown earlier in this presentation, and those costs must be a direct result of Tropical Storm Debby. Finally, costs must be reasonable and necessary as determined by FEMA. As we begin the recovery process throughout the state, please continue to document all damages incurred as a result of Tropical Storm Debby, not just those currently eligible for reimbursement. As we receive updates from FEMA with updated guidance on our current declaration or an additional declaration we may receive, we will push that out to all of you. Please continue to monitor the public assistance website linked here, as well as reach out to your grants managers for further updates. Next slide. When documenting all expenses for this event, details are going to be the most important factor for getting reimbursement. We've provided some examples here of necessary details that are common for FEMA, but please don't feel limited to this list. Whatever additional information you can provide will greatly improve the speed of your project's obligation and eventual reimbursement. Next slide. If you would like assistance with tracking your costs, FEMA has provided worksheets for all cost types reimbursable within the Public Assistance Program. To access them, log into Grants Portal and click the question mark icon in the upper right-hand corner shown here. In the Resources library, all of the helpful worksheets can be found in the Forms section. Please note these forms are not required for public assistance. They are only here to provide assistance should you need it. If you have your own forms or tracking method, please feel free to use it as long as it can meet the necessary details required for reimbursement. If you have questions about the forms or are having trouble accessing them, please reach out to your grants manager and we will be happy to assist you. There are 5 main cost types that are reimbursable under FEMA public assistance, each with different eligibility and documentation requirements. The first is force account labor. These are going to be your in-house employees performing eligible work. In Category B for this disaster, only overtime is eligible for reimbursement. That is inclusive of fringe benefits. Overtime will be based on your personnel policy at the time of the event, so please provide a copy whenever you submit costs in Grants Portal. Temporary employees hired for the disaster are eligible for force account labor, and only these employees are eligible for both regular and overtime. Next, we have force account equipment. These are costs incurred for equipment that you own as an applicant. These are going to be your generators, law enforcement vehicles, and other equipment used during this disaster, especially during the monitoring phase. This declaration will utilize the 2023 FEMA schedule of equipment rates, and those rates include fuel and maintenance costs. Please do not include these as separate costs when submitting to FEMA. Next, we have materials. Materials can either be from your own inventory or purchased for the event. Documentation will be needed dependent on the source, so please keep all invoices, receipts, your inventory control registers, work orders, and maintenance records for the duration of the time you work the event and participate in public assistance for Tropical Storm Debby. Next, we have contract work. For contract work, please ensure that you document your procurement process for all contracts used during this event. We will be covering procurement policy questions later. Please provide your local procurement policy in Grants Portal. For this disaster, reimbursement for contract costs will be restricted to the eligible Cat B costs described in the declaration. Again, that is evacuation costs, sheltering operating, and EOC costs. Temporary employees are not contractors and should be claimed as force account labor. Please ensure you are utilizing the North Carolina Electronic Vendor Portal and SAM.gov to check for debarred contractors. Federal funding cannot be used for work performed by debarred contractors. And finally, we have rental equipment. This is the equipment you need to go out and rent from an outside source. For those costs, we will need your rental agreement. Oftentimes, this is the invoice that you receive if not provided as a separate document. So please ensure you retain those. Also, retain your receipts to validate the rental equipment costs. Fueling costs for rental equipment are eligible as per the rental agreement. If you are unsure about cost type, please continue to document your expenses in as much detail as possible. FEMA or our staff here at the state will assist you once you are registered in Grants Portal. Next slide. All applicants will be eligible for a Category Z management cost project in addition to your documented damages resulting from Tropical Storm Debby. These projects are created at the end of your project submission process and are based on 5% of your total eligible costs. These projects require a final inspection since they are 100% federally funded and are based on actual costs capped at that 5% written amount. For example, if you have a management cost project written for $10,000, but you have actual costs of $8,000, we will be able to claim that $8,000, but the remaining $2,000 will be deobligated. Likewise, if you have that $10,000 project and you submit costs of $15,000, we are limited to only claiming the $10,000 as these projects are capped at the original written amount. Management costs are any indirect costs and administrative expenses that are reasonably incurred associated with managing the grant. These include things like conducting preliminary damage assessments, correspondence with FEMA and the state, any meeting you may have with FEMA and the state, and any grant management activities that you will perform, such as quarterly reporting, closeouts, requesting reimbursement, etc. If you would like a cost tracking form to help you, we have placed one in EM Grants in the document library, but please feel free to reach out to your grants manager if you would like a copy of it or need further assistance. A project is a grouping of relatable eligible expenses, description of work associated, and a cost estimate to complete the approved scope of work. This will be the first disaster we've had in North Carolina that is entirely under FEMA's new project thresholds, so I wanted to detail those for you very quickly. For Tropical Storm Debby, the minimum project amount is $3,900. If your total costs do not exceed that amount, we will not be able to provide public assistance funding. Small projects are anything less than $1,037,000, which will make up the bulk of the projects we see for Debby. Small project funding is fixed and paid as obligated, pending verification of any obtain maintain insurance requirements. These are paid whether written on estimates or actual costs, so it is imperative that we get in that your estimates are as accurate as possible. This is due to the difficulty of obtaining additional funding should your actual costs rise above your obligated costs. The only ways to gain additional funding on small projects is either through verification of your actual insurance proceeds or a small project netting, which is an audit of all your small projects once they are completed, and a cost adjustment based on the net outcome of all projects. Both of these options can result in a reduction of funding. So this is one of the big reasons we really need estimates to be as accurate as you can make them. We strongly encourage you to diligently document all the costs associated with your small projects as they are incurred so that we can request additional funding if necessary. Large projects are going to be anything over $1,037,001. All large projects will be offered as a fixed cost offer, so if that is not something you would like to pursue, you will need to decline this option in Grants Portal. All reimbursement and grant monitoring requirements will occur in EM Grants, and closeout will be required to be submitted no later than 90 days after work completion date. FEMA is a funding source of last resort, and they will not reimburse costs that have been or could be funded by an external source. Please document all your expenses, not just those being submitted to FEMA, in order to verify duplication questions should FEMA have follow-up questions. If you have items being funded by multiple sources, including FEMA, please ensure we can effectively separate all costs to their appropriate sources. Next, I wanted to go through some procurement requirements, especially as they pertain to Category B. For procurement that utilizes federal funding, you must use the most restrictive rule, whether that be from Federal Uniform Guidance or 2 CFR, state procurement law, or your own procurement policies. Please ensure that you are submitting your procurement policy in Grants Portal upon registration. Failure to follow procurement policy is one of the most common reasons for reimbursement denial. We have linked the FEMA Procurement Disaster Assistance Team, or PDAT, website here, which has a wealth of knowledge about procurement and the rules surrounding that, as well as some contract language for you to use. Exigent or emergency procurement often shows up in Category B expenses and is the only exception to federal uniform guidance requirements surrounding competitive procurement. Here we have provided some brief definitions of both, but I encourage you to use the link at the bottom of your screen to have a complete knowledge of when these circumstances are applicable. These exceptions are often applicant and situation specific, so I would encourage you to reach out to your FEMA or NCEM staff for guidance on questions specific to your jurisdiction and your damage needs. Some rules will still apply even in an emergency or exigent exemption, and I wanted to highlight a few of those. As you see in item 2, all contracts involved in federal funding require certain language to be included, and we provided the PDAT contract template for your convenience to ensure you capture the required language. As previously discussed, no federal funding can go toward work performed by a debarred contractor, so please ensure you are utilizing SAM.gov and the NC Electronic Vendor Portal to ensure you are not utilizing a debarred contractor. As we will discuss on the next slide, but I cannot state enough, cost-plus contracts are prohibited and will not be eligible for public assistance. Two types of contracts raise flags with FEMA. We've already mentioned the cost-plus contract, and again, they are prohibited, so please do not use them for public assistance work. Time and materials contracts, while not prohibited, should still be avoided if possible due to the potential for waste. If you cannot avoid using a time materials contract, here are some items to keep in mind. I'd like to highlight a couple from this list. First, that there must be a ceiling price in these contracts, and that when you do have a clear scope of work, you need to procure a new contract. Should either of those items not be satisfied, FEMA will be within its rights to pull funding from the project. We are here to help in any way that we can. Please reach out to us with any questions or if any assistance is needed. As you are finding more damage, please continue to either pass it up to your county EMs or reach out to us for a preliminary damage assessment, and we will work with you to get that set up. Our PA branch manager is Bob Barker, and his contact information is here should you have any questions for him. We have also included an email to the PA hotline that Shonda put in the chat earlier. Please reach out here with any of your questions as we move through this recovery effort. And finally, if you have any technical questions with Grants Portal as far as errors you're incurring or the system just not working right, FEMA has to address that, and we provided their phone number and email here for your convenience. And that will be the end of our briefing. So if there are any questions in the chat, or if anyone has any questions, please enter them in the chat and we will address them now.
The slides will be posted on Wednesday for after we complete the third session on Tuesday. So we will have the recording and the questions from all three sessions available on Wednesday, and we'll post it to the website, and we'll notify participants that participated in our three briefings. Thank you.
Bob, can you move the slide back to your contact information, please, for Todd? And Can you repeat the Cat B eligible costs? For the current emergency declaration we are under, eligible Cat B costs include evacuation costs, shelter and support operation costs, and emergency operations center costs. Does anyone have any further questions? Hearing none and seeing none, I and the rest of NCEM staff will remain here in case anyone has further questions. But that will be the end of the briefing. And as Bob mentioned in the chat, a copy of the slides will be available on the NCEM website recovery page, and there will be a recording available today for review. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you.